Hi everyone, I'm Alister Benn and you're watching Expressive Photography. Welcome to another video. A few weeks ago I posted a video discussing how my mental health had been pretty bad over the summer and that my creativity felt like it was in a state of shock. And I had this workshop coming up on Iceland at the beginning of September. So I thought I would use this video to kind of update you on how it went, the type of images that I was making, and whether in fact the trip to Iceland made me better and improved my whole mental health and creativity, or in fact it was the straw that broke the camel's back and I am now in therapy and in need of a cuddle. So here we are back. I've been home for nearly 2 weeks and I have another few days before I'm heading off to the north coast of Spain to run 2 back-to-back workshops there. So obviously when photography is your job and you're running workshops and taking clients to beautiful places, there is some kind of pressure to lead by example. You know, people have signed up, they've spent quite a lot of money to come on a trip. And I think there's an unspoken expectation that you should be able to go somewhere and point your camera and make things that inspire the people who are there with you. I've been doing this for quite a long time and that pressure doesn't really get to me, but after the summer that I've just had, there was definitely a sense of, have I got this? So one of the first things that happens on workshops is this was an Expressive Photography private workshop. So it was people just from the Expressive Photography forum. So that kind of unknown in terms of what the people were going to be like or how, you know, what the personalities were going to be like was kind of known. So everyone on the trip was really cool, really laid back. Didn't matter if it was raining, blowing a gale or sunny or lots and lots of midges. The bottom line was that everyone was just happy to be there and interacting with each other. So that created a really positive atmosphere for the whole trip. And at no stage did anybody ever throw a wobbler and, you know, turn into a real diva. So I was really grateful for that. The first few days of weather were really challenging. We only actually spent 8 days traveling through the west and north of Iceland, but the weather was very, very challenging, from huge amounts of rain, some very, very gale force winds, you know, just that whole combination that tends to make photography a bit of an ordeal. So what I thought I'd do is I'd just dive into my Lightroom catalog here, and I've picked out just 10 photographs that I've made with my Fuji GFX 100S, and most of these are either shot with a 45 to 100 or the 100 to 200. I'll put the EXIF data up for each photograph when it appears. So I'm just going to take you through these sequentially, and you will notice that they're all in this panoramic aspect ratio. These are actually JPEGs. So I shoot both JPEG and RAW simultaneously in my GFX 100S, partly so I can do things like this. I don't need to work these images because I try to make them in the field look as good as I possibly can, whether that's choosing a crop or choosing a film simulation, to allow myself to look on the back of the camera and get that little buzz where I just think, yeah, that looks cool, that looks complete. And that little step in its own right, seeing something on the back of the camera that gives you a lift, is a really, really cool way to walk into a landscape and distill it down into little sound bites, almost like little highlights. And what that does is it instantly takes the pressure off. The landscape that you walk into, particularly on the west coast of Iceland or up in the western fjords, is just vast. And by isolating little slices of it, I found that a really, really good way to give myself this little buzz. So whether these photographs are to your taste or not isn't really important. The point is that I was engaging with things that caught my eye. The thing I've been talking about in expressive photography for 3 or 4 years now is point your camera at things that you think are cool. Doesn't matter if anybody else thinks they're cool. If you do, then that's good enough for me. Composition for me is the isolation of things that are cool and cropping out or ignoring or making sure I eliminate everything that's not contributing to the harmony of that scene. So in this particular one, what I really loved in this area was, this is one of the geothermal areas in the south of Iceland. This is the old boardwalk, and it has been swallowed by the geothermal area. Not somewhere you would want to go for a stroll. This is boiling water that's erupting out of the ground. But I just really loved the cool sort of steamy area juxtaposed with these warm beams. So that in its own right was a trigger for me, cool to warm. We also have dark to light. We have quite a lot of great atmosphere in there. So looking at the Expressive Photography 5 triggers of luminosity, contrast, color, atmosphere, and geometry, this has them in spades. And this will be a theme, I think, as we move forward. When I shoot the 65 by 24 aspect ratio, I do so because I freaking love panos. I just love panoramic photography, and it was looking at the panos of some of the world's greatest pano photographers back in the 70s and 80s that inspired me. And this has led me down this road of looking at this X-pan aspect ratio. I always get a buzz when I see one on the back of the camera. This scene is further west, and I just loved the layering, the layers of old lava fields, old lava flows. I shot this at f10, and because I'm nearly at 200 millimeters on my longest lens here in medium format, there is a certain amount of diffusion and softness as it disappears through the frame. But that's okay, because the photograph is about the front. It's about that detail and texture in the front. When it comes to processing this photograph, I'll probably add a little bit more clarity and detail to the foreground to emphasize that depth and the diffusion, that transition from front to back. When we're shooting long lenses, there is a certain amount of compression, and I think here, because of the way the atmosphere is working and the panoramic crop, it really helps to create this very, very atmospheric scene. Now, this isn't to be everyone's taste, of course. In the spirit of exploration, if I see something that I think is cool, I will point my camera at it. Whether it ever becomes a photograph or not is an entirely different conversation for an entirely different day. I'm not interested in being in the landscape to make photographs. I'm in the landscape to record things that I think are cool. It's as simple as that. I'm there to hang out with friends. I'm there to experience a different landscape from the one I live in. I'm there to experience the myths and the legends and the sagas. I'm there to use my imagination. I'm there to think about how it must have been 1300 years ago when the Vikings first went there to live and how difficult it must have been for them. So all of these things build up a slice of experiences that we have, perspectives that we have. If I just went there to make photographs and ignored everything else, I think we're in this situation where we're missing the point of being there. Last week's video was talking about ethics. It was talking about behavior. It was talking about how to behave better in the landscape. For me, it's about pointing my camera at the cool and eliminating everything else. I think this is quite quirky and quite humorous, actually. This one I really like, actually. The day somewhat improved. I think this was the second day that we were out, or the first full day that we were out, and we had quite a bit of blue sky. It just opened up very, very briefly from torrential rain, and I just loved the way the blue sky was reflecting off the water here and how it was seeping out from this. This is a man-made breakwater. This is rocks that have been dumped to protect a town, but I just really, really liked the way these streaks were reflecting that blue light. And I believe there's a photograph of me lying there taking the photograph, just handheld, again using my this is again the 100 to 200 mil medium format lens. Again, this aspect ratio is a really good way to isolate, from a generally quite a mundane scene, just a beach beside a town, lots of other people around. But for me, engaging with things like that is always going to make me feel good. Now, of course, expressive photography and all types of photography really are about light. My buddy Adam Gibbs is very much of the opinion that it's all about the light, and him and I have some regular conversations about that. However, when the weather is grim and stormy and the world is trying, or the landscape is trying to repel you back to the vehicle, when you get these occasions when the light just punches through the clouds and shines on the water surface, I truly think there are fewer things in life more spectacular than just witnessing light bouncing off water through dark clouds. So again, this is a very, very simple photograph. There's nothing fancy about it. It's not going to I don't necessarily think that would inspire anybody to go to Iceland, particularly because you could take this photograph off the west coast of Scotland or just about anywhere else that there is a coast. But to me, this was something that I just had to photograph. I'm intentionally showing you JPEGs here because I don't want to show you just finished images. I want to show you what I saw on the back of my camera when I was pointing my things that I thought were cool. I don't want to dress them up or over-process them so that you're getting some false idea of what I was seeing. This is straight out the camera. Couple of sensor spots removed, and that's about it. Of course, the Western Fjords are a stunningly beautiful area, and we were constantly struck by these repetitious layers of these wonderful headlands that spill down into the fjord, and then they're mirrored in the back. Of course, here, Norway is the same as Iceland and Scotland in that fish farming is a really big business. Farming for salmon is pretty much one of the main industries in these fjords, and you can see them here, you know, the fish farms. And you know, does it detract from the scene? Would it be better without them? I don't know. At the end of the day, one of the things that I love about photographing the landscape is photographing what is there, to see what is there, and using my skill and craft to isolate things away from that, to where to crop, where to eliminate, where to get the top of the frame, where to get the bottom of the frame. And in one of the future videos that we're going to be looking at from Iceland, I'll look at these aspect ratio choices and how we can change that in post-production, or indeed why those crop decisions were the right crop decisions for me at that time. Again, fascinated by just this beautiful, flowing, repetitious curve. This is probably one of my favorite photographs from the trip, actually. I just love this scene. I love the detail that the GFX 100S is picking out of this landscape. It's intricate, it's detailed. So this type of thing really excites me. You should be getting a gist now of whether I feel that the trip has made me or broken me. When I start looking at things like this, it's clear that I'm getting excited. This is almost the first time I've looked at these photographs since getting back. So this was taken 3 weeks ago now. And when I look at it in Lightroom and I surprise myself, it's like, yeah, that's good. You know, I like it. Whether anybody else likes it or not, I frankly couldn't care. Another example of beautiful light on the water surface here. This to me is like molten mercury. It's just this incredibly luminous, detailed, flowing surface. And when I process this image, I can tell that I'm already going to make it a bit darker, a bit moodier, a bit more oppressive. Because that bit of me is never going to die. You know, that dark, moody side, I embrace it creatively for sure. I talked earlier about the drama of a scene and the drama of light when it punches through, particularly on a day that has been, you know, either howling gales or pouring with rain. If you're away on one of your own photo trips and the weather is bad, embrace the fact that it's bad and find ways to shoot things that look good in bad weather. This little scene here, we'd left the hotel, we were heading out for the day, and the light was just punching through, and I think we'd only got a kilometre from the hotel, And we stopped, we saw the scene, and it was just everyone jumped out and grabbed our long lenses, and we were shooting all of this handheld. No one got a tripod out because I'm shooting at 1600th of a second at f8 and ISO 320. So it's a nice simple thing to do. Bit of image stabilization on the camera or lens, and it's just good to go. This area in here is just sublime. Now you can see what the joy of a GFX. That is a photograph right there, but I didn't have 400 millimeters. But had I a longer lens, that is what I would have photographed. That to me is the heart of this scene. That to me is why I pointed my camera at the whole thing. And obviously I was limited by the focal length that I had available to me. But like I said, had I a longer lens, that is what I would have pointed my camera at. However, the overall scene is still very exciting. We get these beams that are coming down out of these quite interesting clouds. So obviously we don't always have the lens that we want when we're traveling. I had the longest lens available to me on the trip. I think there was one of the guys had a 250 lens for the GFX, but I ended up not using it. But at the end of the day, it wouldn't have made too much difference to this scene. So at the end of the day, pointing our cameras at things that just fill us with energy, I think is a really, really cool way to approach photography. Expressive photography for me is about being there, noticing, enjoying each moment for what it is rather than wishing for something else. We have no control over weather, we have no control over wind, we have no control over how many other people are going to be in a location. This final scene is taken from one of the geothermal areas in the north, and it was pretty busy, and it was also pretty bad weather, and it was also pretty bad for biting insects. We were generally horrifically swamped by really, really biting insects, or everyone was getting bites. I didn't think they did bite, but apparently they do. And this is a very, very simple photograph. This is the main road, the ring road of Iceland, curving its way through these beautiful rhyolite hills right next to the geothermal area. I took this from the truck. So photography doesn't have to be adventurous. Photography doesn't have to be a challenge. You know, we can literally photograph from beside the road. The vast majority of the photographs you've looked at today were taken from the road. In fact, just to check, this one here was a bit of a hike out to a beach, and this one here was 50 yards from a road. So here we have it. We've got 10 slices of Iceland that I took during an 8-day road trip at the beginning of September there. Did it make me or break me? Well, I feel very calm about my photography. I feel that I made the best of the available weather conditions and the way that the light and the landscape was presenting itself. The whole group had an amazing time. Everyone was raving about the companionship and the opportunities that we had, and just how chilled the whole experience was. So that in its own right was amazing. Since I've been back home, I didn't feel terribly great for the first few days. I have to say I felt a bit drained and a bit tired and wasn't sleeping particularly well. But into the second week, getting out on my bike, doing a bit more exercise, watching my diet, and things are starting to sort of come back more towards normal. Like I said, I'm off to Spain next week for 2 back-to-back workshops, so we're away for over 3 weeks. So I'm really excited to get back down there where the weather is still warm. So I'm kind of looking forward to shorts and a t-shirt for a little bit. But at the end of the day, I hope what I'm showing here is that it's not about making the most dramatic photographs or the most impressive photographs that you can make. It's about pointing your camera at things that you find interesting. And together, I think this body of work stands as a very good illustration of some of the things that we experienced. You could imagine those 10 photographs sitting quite happily in a little portfolio. It's not about warm sunset light. We got virtually none of that on this trip. It was generally, the weather was pretty poor most of the time we were away. So what's the point in dreaming for something that isn't going to happen? We have to be realistic, and we have to be accepting of what is presenting itself in front of us. And this is pretty much the metaphor for life, I think, in that my attitude with myself and my expectations of myself are so much more realistic now than they ever were when I was younger. I'm happy to have an off day where I'm not feeling 100%, and I'll lie on the sofa and read a book. And I'm just going to take that time and chill. There's plenty of days where I have to work 16, 17 hours a day, and you have no choice. You just have to get the work done. So all in all, I'm really, really happy with the trip. I definitely feel that I haven't lost my sense of wonder for the world around me. And as photography is just a byproduct of that, in that, hey, that's cool, I'm going to point my camera at that. That's what photography is for me. It's a way of expressing my joy and my love for the landscape that's in front of me in the weather that was present at the time I was there. I hope you find these videos to be of value. If you do, please hit the subscribe button and the old bell notification. Drop a comment down there to tell me where you are with your photography at this point in time. Have you been struggling? Do you struggle with the idea that you have to make a certain type of photograph to impress people or to consider yourself a good photographer? Thanks very much for watching. I look forward to bringing you some more content. Next week, actually, we'll be taking a break from the Iceland images, and you will be listening to me talking to Eric Bennett about the new book that he is coming out. Eric is an incredible photographer, really, really incredible photographer. So I can't wait to share the conversation with you that him and I had. So thank you very much for watching. That's enough for now. Bye.